So the NHL lottery draft just happened, which means we can now do proper mock drafts. And that being said, I can now comfortably say that, along with just about everybody else, can comfortably say that Shane Wright will in fact be going to the Montreal Canadiens. I mean, what is there to say about Shane Wright that hasn't already been said? He is the best player in the draft. I think he is the most NHL ready player, and he is the best 200-foot player, the best all around forward for sure player in this draft. Again, I've said this before about him. I don't think he's necessarily going to be that elite superstar franchise level player you want, but a very reasonable, very respectable number one C who can play on the power play, play on the penalty kill, and put up good numbers 5-on-5 in terms of, say, expected goals for. That's a really good player that you want on your team. Picking second, of course, we have New Jersey because they moved up and won the second pick, and I have them taking Logan Cooley. Now, to me, Logan Cooley is pretty similar to Shane Wright. I think a lot of the things that you can say about Shane Wright also apply to Logan Cooley, just a little bit less so. Cooley is definitely not as good at Wright in any real area of the game, I would say, but he's pretty close, and again, he is one of the more NHL ready players, one of the better 200-foot players. So, to me, I think he is also probably another number one center in the NHL, or maybe a really good number two center. So for New Jersey, I know they're kind of stacked at center. They've got a lot of forward prospects, but I think Logan Cooley is the best player available, and I do think that the Devils will be drafting him second. Going third overall to the Arizona Coyotes, I have Juraj Slavkovsky. He's a 6'4" winger from Czechia, and he is a pretty good skater for somebody of his size, and he has a wicked shot. I really, really like Slavkovsky. He really impressed me in the under 18s this year before, of course, they got canceled, and he kind of reminds me a little bit, I guess, of countryman Tomas Hertl, which of course will make Sharks fans pretty excited, as I am a Sharks fan, so I guess I'm a little biased there. I don't think Slavkovsky will be as good defensively as Hertl is, at least not at first. He could add that to his game though, but just think of him as a really solid, big power winger who can do typical power forward stuff well. So he's not a center, so Hertl is obviously a center, but other than that, good power forward, really solid. I think he'd be a great addition to the Arizona Coyotes. Going fourth to the Seattle Kraken, perhaps somewhat controversially, because I actually have two defensemen going in a row here. I have Slovak defenseman David Jiricek. The thing that is really impressive about Jiricek is his skating. Again, like Slavkovsky, he's a big guy, not quite as big. He's only 6'3", but he's a big defenseman who's a really good skater, and those to me are the two foundations of a really good NHL level defenseman. Now, I'm not convinced that Jiricek is going to be some elite number one offensive guy in the NHL, but I do think he has the tools to become a really solid two-way defenseman who can maybe put up, say, 40 points a year. And really, what I really like about him is I think he'll be a really good playoff performer. Again, because of his size, because of his skating, I just think that those are things that you really want in a defenseman. Look at the Blues when they went on their cup run, big defenseman. Now, that isn't to say small defensemen don't have their place in the NHL. And next, going fifth overall to the Philadelphia Flyers, I do have Simon Nemech. Now, Nemech isn't exactly small. He is 6'1", but not quite 6'3", obviously. And Nemech arguably has the highest upside of any defenseman in this draft. I think he is the most creative offensively, and he could definitely end up being the defenseman in this draft class that goes on to put up the most points in his career, but I'm just not quite as sold on him as much overall as I am Juracek. Therefore, I have him going 5th overall. Hey guys, Editing Graham here. If you made it this far into the video, hopefully you're enjoying it. If you do, please do consider giving it a like. That would greatly help me out. That being said, let's get back into the video. Going 6th to Columbus, I have Finnish forward Joakim Kemell. Now, I definitely would not draft Kemell this high personally, but I get the impression that he is going to go higher in the draft than I would take him, and I could definitely see Columbus being the type of team that would take a shot on this guy. He has a really good shot, which I guess you could kind of liken to a guy like Chinikov, who they drafted a couple of years ago, or last year, whenever they drafted him. He had a really good shot and not a lot else. I wouldn't say that is exactly true for Kemell. He has a really good shot, and he shoots the puck from pretty much anywhere on the ice. Doesn't really do too much else other than that. I mean, he's okay. Obviously, he's still pretty good overall if he's going this high in the draft in general, but I'm just not that sold on the rest of his game. But I'm sure he will be a very good goal scorer in the NHL. Going 7th overall to the Ottawa Senators, I have another guy that I'm not really that sold on in Cutter Gauthier. Now, Gauthier is fine. He's a perfectly fine prospect. Would I take him this high? No, but it is Ottawa, and I get the feeling that they're going to draft somebody who is perhaps a little bit safer, or perhaps a little bit off the board. I think it is slightly off the board to take him this high, but at least I do think he is a first-round talent, unlike Tyler Boucher. Going 8th overall to Detroit, have a rather interesting one in Matthew Savoy. Savoy is a very interesting player to me. I think he has one of the highest upsides in terms of offense in this draft class. I think he's a really good creative forward who has an underrated shot. He's a pretty good playmaker, but I think his shot is underrated as well. And he's undersized, and he's not the best under pressure, but he is decent for his size. I will give him that. And he is a pretty good skater as well. So for an undersized guy, you really want to be pretty mobile, and he is mobile, has pretty good first step, has some deceptive moves that I really like from him, and he just kind of strikes me as a boom or bust type player though, and in Detroit's system, I think he will thrive and become another great player to come out of that organization in the next few years. So, Savoy, Detroit, 8th overall. Going 9th to Buffalo, I have another guy who really likes to shoot the puck and is kind of right for doing so because he does have a really good shot in Jonathan Lekkerimaki. Really, any of the Djurgården Swedish players in this league could go in this spot, or perhaps even a couple spots higher, but I just have Lekkerimaki here because I don't know, I think the Sabres will like him in this spot. He kind of reminds me a little bit of a guy like Jeff Skinner, who actually had a really good year this year. I believe he had like a 5-goal game or something. But yeah, Lekkerimaki, really good shot. Not super sold on the rest of his game, but I do think he'll put up goals at the NHL level, and I think Buffalo will take that every day of the week. Finally, going 10th overall to the Anaheim Ducks, I have U.S. National Team Development Program player Frank Nazar. Now, Nazar is another guy kind of similar to the guys at the very top of this list, where he is a little bit more of a 200-foot player, I think. Just really solid numbers in a really good program. I believe he's going to Michigan next year, or perhaps Minnesota. Either way, I think he's going to college, but I like his development so far. I think he's a really just overall solid prospect. Not a guy who is likely going to be a super like game-changing player for the Ducks, but maybe a second line guy who can again play power play, play on the penalty kill, like a little mini version of Shane Wright. I can also see them taking a guy like Isaac Howard in this spot, who I think is fairly similar, perhaps has a little bit more upside, a little more risk, but either way, I think the Ducks will be set in this draft. Alright guys, if you liked this video and you want to see more of my opinions on guys that could potentially be going in the first round, go ahead and click on this video right up here. I think you'll enjoy it a lot. Thank you so much for watching.